I joined the Women's Royal Army Corps in 1962.
As a young woman, how old were you?
I was 24, I was old.
Oh, so fun, yeah. So what had you done up to that point?
Well, I worked for the East Midlands Electricity Board,
okay.
And I started off doing the punch. I'd wanted to join the Wrens many years ago when my father was alive, but he made it quite plain that I was not what he would want me to do, although he couldn't have stopped me because I was 18. But I never did anything he didn't want me to. So that's why I was so delayed going. And I picked the army in the end because of all the brochures I picked up. For some reason I didn't want the Air Force. I wanted the Wrens, but at that time they only went to Malta and Gibraltar. And although that would have been abroad for me, it wasn't far enough.
Yes, yeah.
So that is really all I wanted to do, was travel. And the army, they went everywhere, so it had to be young. I don't regret a minute.
Good.
Well, I've been very lucky. I went to Lingfield for training because Guildford was being refurbished. And then I went to Yeovil for trade training to be a clerk. And then my first posting was Larkhill, Salisbury Plain.
I think that's artillery now, isn't it? Would it have been
School of Artillery? Yeah. And while I was there, that was the winter of '63, which was really bad. And on my first leave, I went home. My father died about nearly a year and a half before I joined. And I went home on leave and my mother was not looking too good and I felt guilty for leaving her. So I said, oh, well, I'll buy myself out and then come home. But I don't know what I would have done because my job had been moved from Northampton to Nottingham. So that was no help. And anyway, that was it. I went back to Larkhill, did the procedure by myself out, and they put me in the company office to work out the time I had. And by that time, Aden was starting to be a bit nasty, so they wanted more females out there because you know it's an RAF post really, station, but and the WAFs were there, but not us. So the first lot were being posted from Larkhill, some, but they were all coming into the company office saying why they couldn't go. All sorts of reasons, because they knew about Aden, but I didn't, of course. And anyway, I said to the chief clerk one day, why don't they want to go? I'd go. I joined to travel. And so she said, well, tell the OC then. So we go through all this rigmarole where I'm saying, well, I'm buying myself out. That's a silly thing to say, isn't it? But then a couple of days later, I was in the office. The OC said to me, I understand you want to go to Aden. So once again, well, I'm buying myself out, aren't I now? So she said, well, make up your mind. Do you want to go to Aden or out? And I have to say, without even thinking, I said Aden, you know. So I realised that's all I wanted to do was travel. So next thing I know, I'm getting jabs and goodness knows what, and I've got to go home and tell my mother I'm not coming out and I'm going to this godforsaken place. And anyway, she was wonderful, and off I went. And these are some, while I was there, but it wasn't all bad, you know, at that time, not for us anyway. And we had a day trip, somebody got up a day trip to go to the Hadramaut, which is up country somewhere, I'm not sure quite where, but we flew there on this plane.
Yeah.
And we went to this place called Seyon, where there was a Sheikh's palace, which is this one. And then we went on to this other place called Shibam, which is a skyscraper city. This very tall buildings.
Yes, yeah.
Just built out of mud and whatever. That's the tall buildings, you know, so you might see what it was like. We were able to go on the camel. This is my most memorable trip, I have to say, because it was so. In 1963, you know, I'd never been out of the country before, and I'd only read about these sort of places, and to actually see them, you know, was really, really something. And that city, as I say, is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, apparently. And so, well, we went. This is inside the Sheikh's Palace somewhere. This is en route.
In terms of your memories of being there, Dorothy, I mean, is it very? I mean, I know, for example, you're a photographer as a hobby, so I imagine you're quite visual. I mean, was there anything about sort of the smells and the sounds of the place that you remember?
Oh well, everybody who's ever went to Aden will say is when the doors are played open, the first thing that hit you was the heat and the smell. The heat first, I have to say. It was, especially coming from the winter of '63. I don't quite remember. I remember the heat. I know that.
Yeah.
And that picture went in the brochure, the recruiting brochure. Oh, that's when you were up country. Anyway, this trip was great.
So what was your work role out in Aden?
Oh well, I worked in an office with the Royal Ordnance Corps. Oh, great! I really enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed my time, really. We had an adventure training trip up into the desert, which was quite memorable because we had our Land Rover hit an oil tank drop. I got whiplash. So I was not very happy on all the way into because we got held up, so it's very late, and when we got into the desert, it was black, pitch black, you know. And there's I could just remember these three Land Rovers racing across the desert. And it was not very nice. Anyway, we had to take it in turns to keep watch, and you couldn't see anything. Yeah. And when it was my turn, I couldn't get up because my head wouldn't come up, you know. Eventually I had to come up on my hands and knees, but I don't remember a lot about that trip. It wasn't very successful. But unfortunately, the one after that, which I was going up but didn't in the end, that was a disaster. The wives got captured by the Yemenis, and they strayed across the border, and 3 or 4 young Royal Marines were killed. So that was something I'm glad I missed. Yeah. Just work carried on just the same, and promoted Lance Corporal, don't know why. And then it came time to decide whether I needed to sign on for another year or go home, you know. And I decided to stay on. Because they considered this a hardship posting, I was allowed to pick my next posting. Oh. So I said, well, I wouldn't mind Hong Kong or Singapore. Well, there is a post in Singapore, but you'll have to go as a sergeant. I'd only been out there. I'd only been in service for 2 years. Yeah. Just chief clerk in the company office. Eventually, I got there, and when I got into the office, the chief clerk had gone home because I was delayed so long in the UK. Not only was she not there to hand over, but the company clerk was not there either. She was on R&R. Fortunately, I'd had this bit of experience in the company office. Anyway, I bumbled along through that And eventually, for some reason, somebody had to be posted, but moved from where she worked. So they put her in the company offices and served me out somewhere else.
Uh-huh.
So I worked for SD staff duties. So not very exciting, but so I spent nearly 3 years there.
Oh wow.
And they actually asked me that at the end of that time, where do you want to go? I said, well, Cyprus would be good. No, there's nothing there. You can go to Aden.
Oh, I needed.
I sometimes wish I'd gone back.
Yeah.
Anyway, I said, well, no thanks, I came out. So then I joined the police.
Do you consider yourself to be a veteran, or how do you describe or think of your service?
No, it's just a job. We weren't obviously given guns or done all the training and stuff that they do now, of course, which disappointed me a bit. But I would like to have had a go with the shooting. But we went out shooting from here, from the bridge.
Oh yeah. Good activity.
And I have to say, I was pretty good. That's being a veteran. I never thought I was a veteran. I thought that was all men.
Yeah.
Who'd been fighting and all that. And I don't really consider, because I didn't fight, I didn't have to. I don't feel.
Yeah.
I feel a fraud, actually.
Yeah.
I never felt I belonged in the army.
Yeah.
They all know more than me. They're all very more knowledgeable about it. I just went to work and
I've had a similar experience where you sort of, I've always sort of done my job, but then people would talk about, like perhaps a bit wider army or things that are going on elsewhere or sort of higher level stuff, and I'd be like, I've no idea what you're talking about, It's like,
taken opportunities that were offered, even though I was scared to be a sergeant, to be honest, when I thought about it, because I thought, crumbs, what do I know? I don't know why I got them, but I always, went for them, did all the exams and things.
So in terms of sort of speaking a lot about the sort of publicity aspect, I mean, was there a lot of, do you think there was a drive to show that women are, were doing roles in these places, or?
I don't honestly know. Most of the chaps will say that it's hearts and minds, and also it would be obviously for recruiting. Obviously, because a lot of these pictures were in the book.
Were there any other roles offered to you as a woman, or was it also clerk?
Oh no, there's loads of things, and I when I went to the recruiting place, the major who interviewed me, she said, what did you want to do? I especially thought I would go carry on doing what I was doing. In fact, I could have done, but I didn't really know, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's Crater. That's probably bombed to smithereens now.
How long did you think you would serve, or was it?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I signed up for the 3 years, and I was just going to see what happened, really.
Yeah.
I was a bit, when in clerical training, when we were getting our postings, first postings, I was a bit envious of the girls that were going to Germany. I never heard anything else, but I'm so glad I didn't get that. So, I think I was very lucky to get to Aden and experience that.
Have you been back or to that area,
no.
as a civilian or later life?
Not Aden, no. And of course, no one will now.
Yes.
I went at Singapore. I've been back there, but went back there in 1982, which I didn't recognise the place.
Yeah.
Lost all its character. Cleaned up, but which is rather a shame, because Hong Kong which I went on holiday to. That always, every year was different. A few more big hotels and one thing or another, but it never lost its character. We went to Kenya for R&R.
Oh wow!
And whilst we were there, we went into Treetops, the place where the Queen was. Well,
okay.
We had to go in a hurry, a friend and I, because they were in the throes of getting their independence.
Yeah.
And so to be able to go there, we had to, our R&R was sort of speeded up, if I like.
I mean, was there ever a sense of you sort of being at risk, or being vulnerable, or?
Well, in Singapore actually, which is strange because there was trouble there with Indonesia, and because there was not fighting in Borneo and Malaya and that, and the bombs were being set off in Singapore itself, and in fact one major's wife was killed by a bomb. It was planted outside a shop. But one day we were told that we had to be careful that bombs hadn't been planted around because it was open. It wasn't. There's no. It's not a camp.
Yes,
where we were, and we had to go out and look for the bombs, and I had to take some of the girls out, and I said to them, well, just don't touch anything, because we were not trained to know what to look for. So it was rather dangerous, I thought.
Yeah.
I do remember we were going in a taxi down, so we were going to go to the cinema, and when we got there, I heard this big bang. That might have been a bomb somewhere.
You worked with the Ordnance Corps as well, so of course they would have been dealing with, I guess, munitions and explosives and things. Did they have any
and the ATOs were there. But the silly thing about all this, I think, is that I understood that in those days the role of the women in the services was to relieve the men to go do the fighting. So in the offices and everything else they could do. But I worked in the Ordnance Company office, and there was no other women there but me. So they were all clerks working with me.
So in terms of your next stages, obviously you left the armed forces. How do you think that's impacted, on your life, on the rest of your life?
Well, I mean, I persevered through these 5 years and then I came out. And I went back to my old job in a way, but of course it advanced from the old punch card.
Yeah.
So I was okay at that. That was the only thing I was ever really good at. Data entry, I suppose, mostly. So I carried on doing that. My mother was living in Stevenage at that time, and I went back and I worked for Bow Waters paper, corrugated board, not cardboard, corrugated. And I worked with them for about 9 years. In the meantime, I got married and we travelled to Hong Kong because we travelled. He'd been in Malaya in the 50s, 53 in the Royal Marines, and also in the 60s. And we just went back. We went back to Hong Kong. We went to Hong Kong and Singapore, but we both loved Hong Kong, and we met some nice people there. And I'm still in touch with that girl.
Oh, lovely.
She's about 60 now. She was 19 when we first met.
Wow.
Yeah, so it had some happy memories from 11 years anyway. We didn't have long, but we made the most of it. So all in all, and because, not because he died yesterday, 30 years ago yesterday actually, so it's a long time, you know. So I think I've been alone longer than I've ever been with anybody, you know. Yeah. So anyway, I've made the most of it.
I mean, it sounds like you sort of kept that sort of sense of adventure, perhaps. Is that something? Is that how you describe it, or?
Well, my only passion, really. Well, I remember saying when I was young, you know, it's such a beautiful planet.
Yeah.
And we ought to be able to see all of it. I want to see all of it. Well, you know you can't, but I've done pretty well.
Yeah.
I'd say.
When did you first come to the bridge?
Gosh, must be about 10 years ago. Yeah. I used to come into King then, and I only moved up here 20 years ago.
Oh.
Gosh.
Yeah.
And I used to come up here and park in I was walking through and I saw Sharon, who was the sort of manager in those days. She was outside collecting, so I spoke to her, and then one day I came and there was nobody there, and I thought, go in, I want to see what it's all about. So I thought I went in to make a donation, and Lenny and Steve were there, and as usual say hello, and I said I'll just leave this donation, and I thought I will tell them I'm ex-service. So, right, that was it. Sit down, cup of tea, cup of coffee. And I've not looked back, because I just felt at home, although I have to say, being in the women's side of it, was never anything like this. All this camaraderie, it was not, I don't recall it.
Yeah.
They had their little cliques, you know, and if you didn't fit in, you weren't one of them, you know. So it's totally different, but this is how I feel it's always been, but it hasn't. If you're with me. So yeah. Well, it's my lifeline now. I've got nothing else now. I don't. I'm not able to do the things I used to do. Like play badminton and go on long walks anymore, which is what I used to do. So I just come here. When I first came here, I came once a week on a Thursday, which was then the busiest day, and I said, what I do Thursday night? Really just making teas and coffees and washing up and greeting people and that sort of thing. I wasn't very good at that to start with, talking to people, but I have found it much easier because my first question always is, what were you in?
Yeah.
So there's always something to start off with, and people, they'll either talk to me or they won't, because it's always men.
Yeah.
And that's all right. I'm interested, you see. I'm interested in what they've been and what they were in and where they travelled to, mostly, because there are not many people who've been to Aden. Tony's been to Aden, and a few others. So it's nice to talk to somebody about a place you've been to.
A shared experience.
Yeah, and there are not many of them, So so really that's all I can do now. But that's been sort of taken over by the young people who come in, but I still do get up now and again and help out there. And also there's the knitting.
Yes, of course.
I've just finished the third blanket.
Well done.
So start on the next one now. Gosh.
I think it's one of the most difficult things though in life is to ask for help.
I can't praise this place enough, and I can't praise Helen enough either. I think she's doing a magnificent job.
Yeah.
So many of us, rely on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how would you describe what the bridge is for you?
Well, as I say, it is my life.
Yeah.
It's something to get up for. I come here 4 days a week. It's just wonderful. I tell everybody that. Because it's unique, isn't it? There isn't another one like it. And I feel, for the first time in my life, I feel liked. You're all my family. I feel people care about me, which I've never felt before.